Welcome to Gentle Sleep Stories, a peaceful corner of the night where soft, calming tales help you drift easily into deep, restful sleep. If you've had a long day and your mind won't slow down, just take a deep breath and let my voice guide you into a world of quiet dreams and gentle moments. Before we begin tonight's story, don't forget to subscribe so I can take care of your sleep every night with soothing stories made just for you. Now get comfortable, close your eyes, and let everything fade away. It's time to relax and let the story carry you into sleep. Sweet dreams. Chapter 1. When Dawn Touches the Nile. There is a moment before the world awakens when silence breathes between night and day. The air is neither cool nor warm, and the sky, a pale shade of rose, trembles above the horizon. The first light touches the river like a whisper, a promise, a slow unveiling of time. And there, along the banks of the Nile, humanity stirs. You rise from the woven mat beneath you, the straw still carrying the scent of yesterday's dust. The hut is simple mud walls, a reed roof, and the faint rustle of linen swaying in the soft current of air. The light leaks through the cracks, thin as threads of gold. You blink once, twice, and the day is born. Outside, the world is already awake. The river shimmers under the sun's first glance, and the distant palm trees bend slightly as if bowing in reverence. Somewhere beyond the horizon, unseen, priests lift their hands toward the east, greeting Ra, the sun god, whose rising is not merely a spectacle of light, but an act of divine mercy. You, like everyone around you, breathe with the rhythm of that light. It is not only the beginning of the day, it is the beginning of life itself, renewed and delicate. You step barefoot onto the sand. It is cool for now, smooth and soft, carrying the memory of the night. The sound of the river calls you closer, the slow, endless pulse of water that has shaped this land, this people, this history. The Nile does not rush. It glides like thought, ancient and sure. Its surface reflects not just the sky, but the dreams of those who came before you, those who prayed, loved and died beside it. The morning smells of silt and papyrus, of fish and smoke from distant hearths. A woman passes by carrying a jar on her head, her steps as steady as a heartbeat. The linen of her dress catches the wind like the sail of a small boat. She hums something, a sound between a lullaby and a prayer. It mingles with the rippling of water and the hum of insects, forming a quiet symphony of beginnings. The village is waking now. From every doorway, figures emerge into the pale light, stretching their limbs as if to greet creation itself. The children chase each other along the riverbank, their laughter bright as the glint of light on water. The old ones sit cross-legged near the huts, watching, remembering.
In their eyes the day is familiar yet new. Time in this land does not move forward. It circles like the river's flow, eternal and patient. You kneel by the water and dip your hands into it. It is cool, alive, and when it runs through your fingers, you feel something that is not merely liquid, it is memory. The Nile holds everything: the whispers of ancestors, the songs of priests, the tears of those who once believed the gods themselves walked beside the riverbanks. As you wash your face, the sunlight catches the droplets on your skin, and for a fleeting instant you imagine they are beads of gold, a quiet anointing from heaven. Across the river, the desert begins. It stretches endlessly, a sea of silence and light. The dunes rise and fall like the breathing of some sleeping creature. Out there the horizon is harsh and perfect, and it reminds you of eternity, the kind of eternity that does not speak, only watches. Between the river and the desert, between life and nothingness, stands Egypt, the cradle of the world's oldest dream. The fields are calling. Farmers already move along the irrigation channels, bending over their crops. The smell of wet earth and grain fills the air. A man lifts his eyes toward the sun and murmurs a blessing, not out of habit, but out of gratitude. Every stalk of barley is a prayer answered, every drop of water a covenant renewed. The earth here does not simply feed, it forgives. You feel the warmth of the sun deepening the linen on your body, growing lighter, softer, almost transparent in the glow. There is no shade yet, no shelter from what is to come, but no one complains. The people of this land have learned to love what burns them. The sun is both their ruler and their redeemer. Its heat is an embrace fierce but necessary, a reminder that to live here is to surrender. The priest's voice carries from the temple in the distance. It is low and rhythmic, reciting the hymns that have been spoken since time began. He does not shout. He does not need to. The gods in Egypt are not distant. They are woven into the fabric of life, the flicker of flame, the flutter of a bird, the curve of a shadow. You listen for a moment, and the words, though ancient, feel familiar. They speak of harmony, of order, of ma'at, the balance between all things. Balance. That is what this morning is, a meeting between heat and coolness, light and shadow, silence and sound. You sense that even your own heartbeat echoes this rhythm, the eternal pulse that unites heaven and earth. As the sun climbs higher, the world sharpens. The river glows like molten bronze. The air thickens. Yet in this growing heat, there is peace. Life here does not resist. It adapts. Even the smallest gesture, a sip of water, a bow toward the horizon, is part of the great conversation between human and divine. You close your eyes for a moment. Behind your eyelids, You see red, gold, and white colors of fire and faith. You breathe slowly, deeply, and in that breath you feel the entire land breathing with you. The Nile, the palms, the unseen gods, the people, they are all part of the same long exhale. And as the first hour of day settles in, you realize something. This place, with its unbearable light and sacred stillness, is not only a world of sand and stone, it is a mirror. To live here is to be reflected back to yourself, to see in the face of the sun and the surface of the river your own soul staring quietly in return. You rise, brush the sand from your hands, and begin to walk toward the fields. The day has only just begun, but in some way it has already lived a lifetime. The sunlight glows on the river's skin, and the voice of the priest fades into the wind. Everything feels suspended serene, as if time itself were pausing to watch the miracle of another human day. Somewhere within you, a voice whispers, not in words, but in warmth. Every dawn is creation reborn. Every breath is a prayer. Every grain of sand remembers you. And as the light deepens, you continue walking each step, blending into the rhythm of life beside the Nile. The air shimmers, the earth hums, and slowly, quietly, the heart of Egypt beats within your own. You're just a few moments away from drifting into a deep, peaceful sleep. Don't forget to subscribe before you slip into your sweet dreams tonight. Chapter 2: The Breath of Water and the Face of the Divine. The day continues like a long exhale. The sun that rose gently over the Nile now burns steadily above the land, turning every surface into a mirror of light. The heat presses on your shoulders like a hand firm but not cruel. You remember the morning's first quiet, the golden hush of dawn, and how it felt to awaken to the sound of water whispering against the earth. That memory stays with you now, like a cool thought you carry through the rising heat. The Nile, patient and eternal, waits for you again. You walk slowly toward the river. Each step leaves a faint mark in the sand that the wind immediately begins to erase, as if reminding you that nothing truly belongs to us, not even our footprints. Ahead, the air shimmers, and beyond the glare, the Nile gleams like a ribbon of glass. It is the same river you touched at sunrise, but somehow it feels different now, older, wiser, as if the hours of daylight have deepened its soul. The closer you get, the more alive it becomes. The sound of lapping waves grows louder, a steady rhythm like breathing. The smell of wet clay and lotus flowers fills the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of reeds warmed by the sun. You feel drawn to it, not out of need, but recognition. The river is not just water, it is memory flowing. To touch it is to touch everything that came before you: birth, growth, devotion, death, and all that will come after. By the bank, women bend over jars, scooping water into clay pots balanced gracefully on their heads. Their movements are slow, circular, almost sacred. You watch as they laugh softly among themselves, their voices blending with the low hum of insects and the distant call of cranes. Each gesture seems deliberate, each drop precious. You realize that here the act of gathering water is not a chore, it is a ritual. To draw from the Nile is to borrow from life itself. You kneel again at the edge, and this time you linger. The sun dances across the surface, scattering patterns of gold and silver like fragments of a forgotten language. You trail your fingers through the ripples. The coolness climbs up your arm, soothing, grounding. The sensation is almost human, like the gentle touch of someone ancient and kind. For a moment, you understand why the Egyptians saw divinity in the elements. Water was not just a substance, it was spirit made visible. The priests say the Nile is the breath of Osiris, the god of renewal. When it floods, it is his resurrection. When it retreats, it is his rest. The people live by his rhythm, trusting that what withdraws will one day return. You think of how everything in life moves like this: approaching, receding, offering, taking away. Even love has its tides, even faith. And yet the river never truly leaves, it only changes its form. Children splash in the shallows, their laughter cutting through the heat. Nearby, a young man casts his fishing net with practiced grace, its arc glimmering in the light before it falls like silk onto the water. The river swallows it gently. For them, this is daily life. For you, standing in stillness, it feels like watching the pulse of the universe. There is no separation between the sacred and the ordinary here. They are one and the same, breathing in rhythm with the current. You take a handful of water and pour it over your head. The shock of coolness steals your breath, then fills you with calm. Droplets run down your face, and for an instant you imagine they wash away not only dust, but doubt, the small anxieties of existence that cling to the skin of every human life. In this act, you are not just cleansing your body, you are remembering something older than language, the comfort of surrender. The wind shifts slightly, carrying the scent of blue lotus from across the river. You close your eyes and let the fragrance drift through you. The Egyptians once believed the lotus was born from the first light, the flower that opened to reveal the sun itself. It is said that in the beginning there was only darkness and water, until the lotus bloomed and creation began. And so each blossom you see now is a reminder that the universe, no matter how vast or old, is capable of beginning again. As you watch the petals sway on the surface, You notice how the light bends around them. The reflection of the sky is never still. Every wave, every ripple reshapes the world it mirrors. You think of how your own mind works, the same way, constantly moving, reflecting, distorting. The face you see in the water is never just yours. It carries pieces of your ancestors, fragments of their faith and fear. In your reflection lives every soul that once knelt here. A heron glides low across the water, its shadow trailing like a quiet brushstroke on a vast canvas. The scene feels eternal. Yet you know that this too will pass. The heron will vanish, the ripples will settle, the laughter will fade, but something will remain, the gentle awareness that all of this, the heat, the water, the light, are not separate from you. They are you. The divine is not distant. It is the air in your lungs, the shimmer on the river, the breath that connects your heart to the horizon. The afternoon sun begins to lower, softening from white to amber. The Nile's surface changes again, less brilliant, now more tender, like silk under shadow. The women finish their tasks. The fishermen gather their nets, and the children wander back toward the village. The sounds of day grow quiet, replaced by the steady murmur of evening. You sit there until the light turns to gold, then to rose, then to the dusky violet of approaching night. As darkness begins to fall, a thought comes to you, one that does not arrive in words, but as a feeling deep and round, like the current beneath your feet. The river is not only outside of you, it moves within you too. Every heartbeat is a tide, every breath a wave. The Nile does not belong to Egypt. It belongs to all who have ever longed to be cleansed, to begin again, to feel connected to something larger than themselves. When you finally stand to leave, the wind rises gently, carrying small ripples across the water. In their motion, you see the outline of something vast and invisible, perhaps the soul of the river, perhaps the echo of your own. Either way, it follows you as you walk back toward the village, the sand cool beneath your feet, the stars just beginning to appear. Behind you, the Nile glows faintly in the starlight, flowing in perfect silence. It does not end. It simply continues, like thought, like prayer, like the human spirit learning again and again how to breathe. Chapter 3. The Meal of Earth and Wind. The night had fallen quietly over the Nile, and when morning came again, it did so like a soft breath, the kind that barely stirs the air, yet carries the scent of life. You remember the river's whisper from the day before, the coolness that clung to your skin, the still reflection of your face in its moving mirror. That memory stays within you now as you wake once more beneath the warming light. The sun rises as it always does, steady and golden, reminding you that every day in this land begins with the same act of grace. You stretch your body, feeling the weight of sleep fade away, and listen. The world outside is stirring. You hear the voices of neighbours,
the faint bray of a donkey, the echo of sandals brushing the sand. The village smells of baked earth and smoke. Breakfast time approaches not with urgency, but with quiet ritual. In ancient Egypt, the first meal is not a feast. It is a prayer you can taste.
A woman nearby begins grinding barley on a flat stone. The rhythm is slow and hypnotic, a forward press, a backward pull, a sigh of grain turning to powder. Dust rises in a pale cloud around her hands, golden in the early light. The sound blends with the hum of insects, the distant murmur of the river, and the rustle of linen in the breeze. It feels like music without instruments, a song the world has always known. You sit near a small clay hearth, watching as the fire is coaxed to life with a few gentle breaths. The flames tremble, catching the dry twigs, then rise with sudden strength. Their light flickers against the walls of the hut, painting them with shades of orange and amber. Beside you, a loaf of coarse bread bakes slowly on the hot stone. It is simple flour, water, salt, nothing more. Yet the scent is comforting, familiar, sacred in its simplicity. Bread here is not only food, it is the body of the earth made edible, the gift of soil and sun, transformed by human hands. Each loaf carries the memory of the fields where the grain once swayed the sweat of those who harvested it, and the patience of those who ground and shaped it. When you break the bread, you break open the story of life itself, labor, fire, nourishment, gratitude. A clay cup of beer is passed around, thick and cloudy, the color of honeyed sand. It tastes sour and warm, like something alive. The people drink slowly, not to celebrate, but to sustain. The beer is less a luxury than a form of survival, safer than the water, rich with the promise of strength. Even the children sip from it, laughing at its strange taste. You take a small swallow, feeling the heaviness of the liquid coat your throat, and somehow it feels grounding, ancient. There are no plates, no polished utensils. Food is shared by hand, passed between friends and family, eaten from the same bowl. An onion, sharp and sweet, is peeled and divided. A few dates are placed on a woven mat, a sweetness that balances the earthiness of the bread. Everything about this meal is humble, but in its humility lies a quiet splendor. No one rushes. Every bite is taken with awareness, every movement deliberate. It is not about filling the body, but honoring it. As you eat, you look around. A boy offers his mother a piece of bread. She smiles and blesses him with her eyes. A neighbor brings a jar of fresh water, the coolness beading on its surface. Someone laughs softly at a passing thought.
These small gestures, these shared silences, weave a sense of belonging stronger than any monument. Life here is not built on grandeur. It is built on rhythm of day and night, hunger and fulfillment, work and rest. You tear another piece of bread and notice the grit between your teeth, a trace of sand that found its way into the flour. At first it surprises you, but then you realize even this imperfection belongs.
The land itself becomes part of you grain by grain. To eat the bread of Egypt is to take its dust into your body, to become in some subtle way one with the desert that surrounds you. Nearby, an old man recites a short prayer before finishing his meal. The words are simple, but carry the weight of generations. He thanks the gods for sustenance, for the rising of the sun, for the coolness of the Nile, for the strength of his hands. You can't help but wonder how many millions of mornings have begun this way. How many hearts have whispered these same words into the vast silence of the world? You look toward the river, faintly visible through the haze. Its presence is constant, like a heartbeat you no longer need to hear to know it's there. The Nile gives, and the people give thanks. In this balance lies peace. You sense that this act of eating is not separate from prayer. It is prayer itself. To chew, to swallow, to breathe, it is all a conversation between body and soul, between human and divine. As the meal ends, the villagers rise, each returning to their tasks. The women gather the mats, brushing away crumbs for the birds to find. The men prepare for the long hours of labor ahead. Even the children, their bellies full, run to fetch water or tend to animals. No one wastes. Nothing stands still. Life here flows like the river, steady, purposeful, endless. You linger for a moment, savoring the aftertaste of barley and salt. There is a strange serenity in your chest, as if the bread has done more than feed you. It has quieted you. You think of how every act of survival done with awareness becomes something sacred. Perhaps this is why the people of this land endure. They do not resist the demands of the world. They move with them, shape them, and find beauty within their simplicity. The wind picks up, carrying with it the warm scent of grain and fire. It brushes against your face like a soft reminder that everything heat, hunger, labor, rest is part of one vast design. You stand, brush the sand from your knees, and turn toward the fields. The day is waiting vast and bright. Before you leave, you glance once more at the hearth. The last ember glows faintly beneath a curl of smoke. You can almost hear it whisper a language without words, a warmth that speaks directly to the heart. The meal is over, but the blessing lingers. As you step back into the sunlight, you feel both lighter and more rooted. The bread, the beer, the laughter, they are within you, now a quiet rhythm that will carry you through the heat and the labor to come. And somewhere behind you, the Nile continues to breathe unhurried and eternal, as if blessing each humble breakfast that rises with the sun. Chapter 4. Beneath the shadow of the Pharaoh, the sun has climbed high and the warmth from your simple morning meal still lingers in your chest. The scent of baked bread and barley drifts faintly through the air, carried on the same breeze that moves the river reeds. Around you, life continues in its patient rhythm, the same rhythm that has guided your ancestors for thousands of years. And yet, as the day deepens, another presence begins to fill the air, one that feels larger, older and heavier than the stones beneath your feet. It is the unseen shadow of the Pharaoh stretching across the land like a second horizon. You begin to walk toward the edge of the village, where the open plain leads to a road of packed earth. The road itself feels ancient, lined with low stone walls and fading carvings. Travellers pass by, farmers leading donkeys loaded with grain, soldiers with bronze spears glinting in the light, and priests in long linen robes moving silently as if they float rather than walk. All of them, no matter who they are or where they go, bow their heads when they speak the Pharaoh's name. It is less an act of obedience than of reverence. Here, power is not only human, it is divine. In this world, the Pharaoh is more than a ruler. He is the beating heart of the nation, the living bridge between earth and heaven. When he breathes, Egypt breathes. When he prays, the gods listen. To question him would be to question the order of the universe itself. And yet it is not fear that shapes this devotion. It is faith. You can feel it in the way the people move, in how the farmers pause before planting the first seed, whispering a quiet blessing for their king. From the distance, the city begins to appear a cluster of temples and palaces, rising like carved dreams from the sand. The closer you get, the more you sense the immensity of what humanity can build when it believes in something greater than itself. Columns stand like forests of stone, their tops blooming into lotus shapes that touch the sky. Carvings of gods and kings line the walls, their eyes calm and knowing. Each figure, each line feels alive, charged with the same sacred energy that once flowed through the hands of the sculptors. You pass a group of workers dragging large blocks of limestone toward the site of a new temple. Their bodies glisten with sweat, muscles taut, faces sunburned. But even as they strain beneath the weight, there is no bitterness. They sing a deep, rhythmic chant that rises and falls like the breath of the earth itself. Their song is a prayer of endurance, of belonging, of purpose. The sound moves through the air like incense, both heavy and holy. Watching them, you begin to understand something. Labor here is not punishment. It is participation in the divine. To build a temple is to carve one's faith into eternity. Each stone placed, each tool lifted, is a conversation between mortal hands and immortal meaning. The people do not separate the sacred from the ordinary. They see God's presence in both, and above all, they see it in the Pharaoh. His image is everywhere, on walls, in statues, on the small amulets that hang from children's necks. His eyes, carved wide and clear, seem to follow you wherever you go. Yet there is no malice in that gaze. It is steady, protective, almost parental. The people call him the good God, Lord of the two lands, Son of Ra. He is the human reflection of the sun, distant, radiant, eternal. In the marketplace you overhear conversations about his deeds, how he prayed for the floods to come, and they did, how he ordered grain to be shared during famine, how he built a shrine to honor his mother's soul. Each story grows with retelling, becoming more legend than history. And perhaps that is the point. In a land where life depends on the uncertain mercy of the river and the sky, people need their pharaoh to be larger than life. He must not only rule their bodies, but steady their hearts. You walk past a temple gate, its entrance flanked by two towering statues of the king. Their faces are serene, the lips curved in a faint smile that holds both wisdom and mystery. Between them burns a shallow basin of oil, the flame dancing and bending in the desert wind. You stand before it for a while, watching the flicker of light play across the stone. It feels alive, almost breathing. And you think perhaps belief itself is a kind of fire, something fragile yet enduring, something that must be tended carefully or it disappears. A priest approaches his steps, slow, deliberate. He carries a small bowl of water and sprinkles it along the threshold of the temple. The droplets catch the sunlight and shimmer like tiny stars. When he speaks, his voice is low and melodic, each word measured like a heartbeat. He tells you that the pharaoh ensures the great balance of the world. Without him, the river would not rise, the crops would not grow, and the stars would lose their place in the heavens. To keep order is to keep creation alive. You bow your head. You don't do it out of fear or obligation, but because something deep inside you recognizes the truth in his words. Order, harmony, and devotion. These are the invisible pillars that hold life together. Without them, even the strongest walls crumble. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the west, the light turns soft, diffused. The shadows of the statues stretch long across the temple floor like dark rivers flowing toward the horizon. You think of the pharaoh again, this man who carries both crown and burden, who is loved like a father and feared like a storm. You wonder if he ever feels the weight of it all. To be seen as divine must be a lonely fate. A flock of white ibises rises suddenly from the marshes nearby, their wings catching the last light of day. For a moment, they seem to fly toward the sun itself, glowing against the crimson sky. You watch until they vanish into the distance, and you realize how small even a pharaoh must look from the heavens. Yet, in their flight, there is beauty and meaning. They rise not to escape, but to honor the light that gave them wings. Night falls gently over the city. The temples glow with torchlight, the songs of the workers fade, and the desert cools under the touch of darkness. You make your way back toward the quiet village by the river. Behind you, the great monuments stand unmoving, bathed in silver moonlight, guardians of both history and hope. As you walk, you feel the lingering presence of the pharaoh around you, not as a ruler above, but as a symbol within. In every person's heart lies a small reflection of that same divine authority, a voice that seeks to bring order to chaos, purpose to the unknown. You look toward the horizon where the stars are beginning to bloom like flowers in the night sky, and you understand beneath the shadow of the pharaoh, humanity has learned to walk with dignity, to serve with meaning, and to see the sacred hidden in the simplest of things. And so, under the patient watch of the heavens, Egypt sleeps again, its people wrapped in faith, its river murmuring prayers to the stars, and the eternal sun now resting beyond the dunes, waiting to rise once more. Chapter 5. When the sand whispers of eternity, the night has passed softly like a prayer breathed into the wind. From your resting mat, you can still feel the echo of yesterday, the weight of the pharaoh's shadow, the rhythm of the workers' songs, the flicker of temple fires against stone. Yet when morning comes again, it brings with it a different silence, a deeper stillness that seems to stretch across the land itself. The air is cooler than before, touched by the faint scent of dust and salt. It is the kind of dawn that does not shout, but listens. You walk out of the village, leaving behind the murmur of voices and the smoke curling upward from small clay hearths. Ahead lies the desert, vast and shimmering beneath the newborn light. The Nile glitters behind you like a memory, its silver ribbon winding through the valley, nourishing life. But here before you begins another world, one of absence, one of silence, one of endless time. The first step into the sand feels like stepping into the breath of eternity itself. The dunes rise gently, not as obstacles, but as invitations. Their curves are graceful, their shadows delicate. The sun, still low, paints them in hues of rose and gold, as if the desert were made of light rather than earth. Each grain of sand catches the morning glow and glimmers for an instant before returning to stillness. You can hear them shifting faintly beneath your feet, whispering to one another in a language older than words. For a while you walk without destination. There is something freeing about this emptiness. The horizon stretches in every direction, unbroken, infinite. The sky above is pale and open, like the blank page of a sacred text waiting to be written upon by the wind. You feel both small and infinite at once, a single breath in the lungs of creation. In the distance, you spot the faint outline of a pyramid, its sharp edges softened by centuries of sun and sand. It rises from the desert floor like the memory of a prayer carved in stone. Even from afar you can sense its presence, a structure not merely built but believed into existence. You realize that the Egyptians did not construct their monuments to defy time, but to converse with it. Each stone is an answer to the question every soul eventually asks: what remains when I am gone? You sit down at the base of a dune and let the sand slide through your fingers. It feels warm, alive, shifting endlessly, yet never lost. Each grain once belonged to mountains, to riverbeds, to the hands of builders who shaped empires. Time, it seems, is not something that passes here, it only changes form. The same particles that now rest in your palm once witnessed the birth of kings, the rise of temples, the laughter of children who long turned to dust. And yet they remain. The desert remembers what the world forgets. The wind begins to pick up, carrying with it a soft sigh that moves through the dunes like a voice. It is not harsh, but tender, as though the earth itself were breathing. You close your eyes and listen. Within that sound, you think you can hear fragments of stories, the call of the priest at sunrise, the songs of laborers, the quiet heartbeat of the pharaoh in his tomb. All the ages seem to converge in that single whisper. It is the song of endurance, of beauty, surviving ruin. You think back to the life you saw along the Nile, the bustle of the village, the laughter of the children, the humble prayers of those who labor from dawn to dusk. Their world seems fragile compared to this desert, and yet both belong to the same balance. The Nile gives life, the desert preserves it. Between water and sand lies the truth of existence, creation and stillness, movement and rest. One cannot live without the other. As the sun climbs higher, the heat begins to shimmer across the dunes, turning them into waves of molten gold. You wrap a cloth around your head and gaze toward the horizon. The air wavers, and for a moment it seems that the desert itself is breathing with you, rising, falling, inhaling light, exhaling silence. You realize then that this place, though empty, is not void. It is full of presence, full of being. Here nothing speaks, yet everything is said. In this vastness, time loses its grip. Minutes feel like centuries, centuries like moments. You imagine the countless travelers who have walked this same path, the shepherds, the merchants, the kings, each one leaving behind no more than a footprint
that vanished within hours, and yet something of them remains. Perhaps it is in the way the wind moves, or in the faint hum of the earth beneath your feet. Existence, you begin to understand, is not about permanence, but about resonance.
What matters is not how long something lasts, but how deeply it is felt. The pyramid gleams brighter now, its peak catching the full force of the sun. You approach it slowly, the air trembling around you. Up close, its stones seem impossibly large, worn smooth by millennia of wind. You place your hand upon one block and feel a faint vibration as if the stone still holds the echo of the hands that set it here. The builders may be gone, but their devotion remains imprinted in the rock, a silent faith carried across time. You sit in the shadow of the pyramid and close your eyes. The air is dry, the silence complete. In that stillness, a kind of peace unfolds within you, vast and weightless. You think of how every life, no matter how small, adds one more grain to the great dune of eternity. You think of how the gods themselves must listen to the same wind you hear now, eternal and kind. When you finally open your eyes, the light has changed. The sun is beginning its slow descent, and the colour of the desert turns to amber, then crimson, then soft grey. The heat eases, replaced by a tender coolness that touches your skin like forgiveness. The first stars blink faintly in the fading sky, shy and distant. You begin the walk back to the river, following the faint trace of your earlier footprints until they disappear. Behind you, the dunes shift again, erasing every sign of your passing. Strangely, this does not sadden you. It comforts you. To be forgotten by the sand is not to be lost. It is to be returned to the whole. You realize that this is what the ancients understood so well. Eternity is not about being remembered. It is about belonging to everything. As you near the Nile, the sound of water returns soft and familiar. The village glows faintly in the distance, lanterns flickering like small stars on earth. You pause for a moment and look back. The desert lies silent, unbroken, luminous beneath the moonlight. You can almost hear it whispering again, gentle, eternal, like a lullaby carried by the wind. And in that whisper, you sense a truth so simple it feels divine. Nothing is ever truly gone. Everything changes, form, everything returns, and the soul, like the sand, is never still, but always eternal. Chapter 6. When humanity began to hear the heartbeat of the earth, the wind still carries the hush of the desert behind you. You can almost feel the whisper of sand clinging to your skin, the memory of timelessness fading into the warmth of morning. The Nile glimmers once more in the distance, steady and alive, as if waiting to remind you that life, no matter how small, keeps moving forward. The rhythm of the river seems to echo somewhere deep within you, a pulse beneath the surface of thought, ancient and steady. And as you listen, that rhythm begins to sound like something familiar. It is not only the Nile's song you hear, it is the first beat of something greater, something that belongs to every human heart. Long before words were spoken, before the carving of symbols or the rise of empires, humanity learned to listen to rhythm. In the beginning, we did not speak to the gods with language. We spoke with sound, with the steady pattern of hands meeting hollow wood of feet, striking earth in time with the pulse of the world. Somewhere in that sound we discovered reflection, emotion, and prayer. Somewhere in that beat, we found the earliest form of understanding the rhythm of existence itself. You close your eyes, and it is as if the centuries unfold. You see a small fire burning in the middle of a clearing. Around it, silhouettes move with slow, deliberate motion. Their shadows stretch across stone and soil, dancing with the flames. One person begins to strike a drum, a simple frame of animal hide stretched over wood. The sound is low, deep, resonant. Another joins, then another. The rhythm grows layer upon layer until the air itself begins to vibrate with life. It is not music yet, it is communion. Every beat answers something unseen. Every sound mirrors the pulse of the body, the flow of breath, the murmur of rivers beneath the earth. The people do not play to the gods, they play with them. The drum becomes a bridge joining heaven, earth, and human in one heartbeat. For the first time, you understand why rhythm feels so powerful. It is the echo of creation itself, the same rhythm that shaped the tides, that pushes sap through trees, that makes the heart contract and release, that keeps stars circling in their silent, endless paths. When humans struck the first drum, they were not inventing something new. They were remembering something eternal. The firelight flickers across the players' faces, revealing eyes, half-closed bodies, swaying as if the music comes from somewhere inside them. The rhythm slows, then quickens, as if mimicking the breath of a sleeping world. You notice how even the children too young to understand begin to move their feet in time. The elders sitting apart smile faintly. They have heard this rhythm before, in rain, in waves, in the beating of a mother's heart. They know it is the oldest language on earth. The sound grows fuller, echoing against rocks, carrying into the dark beyond the firelight. It is impossible to tell where one player ends and another begins. Their hands move in unison, and it feels as if they have become one body, many lives guided by a single unseen rhythm. For a moment, the boundary between human and earth disappears. They are not drumming, the earth is drumming through them. You watch as the fire crackles, sparks rising into the night sky. The smoke twists upward, joining the stars, and for an instant you can imagine that the universe itself is keeping time. There is rhythm in everything, the turning of planets, the migration of birds, the ebb of breath during sleep. Perhaps that is why the drum has always felt like home. It reminds us that we belong to something vast, something alive. As dawn approaches in your vision, the rhythm slows. The players grow quiet, their hands resting on the warm hides of their drums. The air feels charged with silence, like the pause between heartbeats. And then comes stillness, a deep, beautiful stillness. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of completion. The earth has spoken, and they have answered. You open your eyes again to the Nile, and suddenly the world feels changed. The hum of insects, the rush of wind through papyrus, the gentle lapping of water against the bank, all of it carries that same pulse, that same cosmic rhythm. You begin to wonder if perhaps the drum was never meant to create rhythm, but to reveal it. It teaches us to hear what was already there, to recognize the divine cadence woven through every living thing. Later that day, as the sun climbs higher, you walk through the village. A woman is pounding grain with a wooden pestle, her motions rhythmic and sure. A man nearby hammers a wooden peg into a boat, each strike falling in perfect time. Even the children splashing by the river clap their hands in unison as they play. Everywhere the rhythm continues. It is life repeating itself in small gestures, the invisible orchestra of existence. You sit by the riverbank and close your eyes again, listening. Beneath all the separate sounds, there it is, the pulse. It feels steady, ageless, comforting. You realize that this same rhythm exists inside you too. It has always been there from the moment you first drew breath. Every heartbeat is a reminder that you are part of something vast and living, something that began before history and will continue long after memory fades. The sun begins to set and the first stars shimmer above the horizon. The river glows with the reflection of their light. The day's heat fades, replaced by a soft breeze carrying the smell of wet reeds and distant smoke. Somewhere in the darkening village, a group of people begin to drum again. The sound is faint at first, but it grows slow, steady, deliberate. The rhythm reaches you like a heartbeat through the earth. You feel it in your chest, your breath falling into sync with it. The drumming continues into the night, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, as if echoing the pace of dreams. You lie down on the cool ground and gaze up at the stars. Each flicker above feels like a beat of some divine drum, keeping time for the universe itself. The rhythm surrounds you, then moves within you until there is no boundary left. And as you drift towards sleep, one thought settles gently in your mind. Perhaps we have never stopped listening to that ancient beat. Perhaps every song, every prayer, every whispered longing is simply our attempt to find our way back to it. The earth has always been playing. It is our hearts that must learn again and again to keep the rhythm. Chapter 7. The drums that called the sky and the water. The night of rhythm fades into memory, though its pulse still lingers within you like the echo of a dream. Even after the fire has long turned to ash, your body continues to move with the memory of sound, the invisible heartbeat that unites the world. When morning comes, the wind feels different. It carries stories from beyond the desert, beyond the Nile, beyond anything the eye can see. The rhythm you heard last night was not only human, it was the earth's own voice. And that voice, you now understand, speaks in every corner of creation. The journey begins again, but this time you travel through imagination more than distance. You close your eyes, and the rhythm of your breath becomes the rhythm of time itself. The Nile fades, the desert fades, and suddenly the world around you changes. You find yourself standing in a different land, a lush forest filled with moisture and song. The air here is heavy with life, and beneath the towering trees you hear it again, the drums. They sound different now, deeper and fuller, as if the forest itself is playing along. Each strike of the drum rolls like thunder, resonating through the trunks, through the soil, through the pulse of every creature that moves within it. The people here are gathered in a wide clearing. Their bodies are painted with earth, their faces streaked with ash and colour. The drums sit before them carved from single trees and stretched with animal hide, their surfaces glowing with age and care. Each drum has its own voice, its own soul. The first player begins with a steady rhythm, slow, grounded, sure. Another joins, then another, until the clearing fills with sound. The rhythm swells, flowing like a river through the forest. The people move with it, swaying, bending, lifting their arms to the sky. The sound is not chaotic, it is a conversation. Each beat seems to call out to something unseen, and the wind answers through the branches. You realize that this is prayer in its purest form. Prayer that does not need words. Prayer that feels rather than speaks. In this place, the drum is not an instrument. It is a doorway. Its vibration opens a space between the human and the divine. When the rhythm grows stronger, even the earth seems to tremble with recognition. Birds call from the trees, the river nearby begins to shimmer, and the air thickens with something that feels like presence. The people believe that when they play, the gods hear, and more importantly, the gods respond. As you watch, one woman steps forward from the circle. Her hair is adorned with feathers, her eyes gleam with firelight. She begins to dance her feet, moving in harmony with the drum beats. Each movement is deliberate, symbolic, a gesture of gratitude, of invocation. When she spins, the air itself seems to spin with her, forming a spiral of motion and sound. She is not performing, she is becoming. The boundary between her body and the rhythm dissolves. It is as if the heartbeat of the earth has found its form in her. The drummers shift their tempo. The beats grow faster, more insistent, like rain gathering on the horizon. You hear a rumble in the distance, low and rolling. Thunder answers them. The sky darkens slightly, and a breeze moves through the leaves, whispering in response. The people smile, they have been heard. Their rhythm has reached the heavens. Raindrops begin to fall, slow at first, then steady. No one seeks shelter. Instead, the drummers keep playing, letting the rain soak into the skins of their drums, into their hair, into their hearts. The sound changes now, softer but richer, as water meets earth, in a rhythm older than humanity itself. It is the sound of gratitude, of renewal of life returning. You stand among them, feeling the rain wash the dust from your skin. The air smells of earth and joy. You realize that what you are witnessing is not a performance, it is a sacred exchange. The people give their rhythm to the sky, and the sky gives its rain in return. Each beat, each drop, is a gesture of love between the human soul and the living world. As the rain subsides, the drums continue, but their tone changes once again. Now they speak to the river. The players kneel, dipping their hands into the water, then striking the drums with renewed tenderness. The rhythm becomes fluid, like ripples spreading across a pond. Fish leap in the shallows, startled or perhaps entranced. The drummers smile, knowing that even the creatures of the deep have heard them. You understand now why ancient peoples believed the drum could summon spirits, heal wounds, or call down rain. It was never about control, it was about communion. The drum teaches humanity how to speak with the world, not to command it, but to join its music. Every sound from thunder to heartbeat belongs to the same orchestra. The fire in the clearing begins to die down. Smoke curls upward, mingling with the mist. The drummers lower their hands, resting their palms on the cooling hides. The silence that follows is almost holy. In that stillness, you feel something stir inside you, a recognition that the rhythm you have heard here is not foreign. It has always been within you, waiting to be remembered. You walk toward the river's edge. The water reflects the grey sky, calm, now almost reflective of your own thoughts. You kneel and dip your fingers into it. The ripples spread outward, gentle and endless. You can still hear the faint echo of the drums behind you, but now it feels softer, internal. It is no longer just sound. It has become heartbeat, memory breath. When you rise, the village behind the forest fades from view, dissolving into mist and light. You find yourself walking again along the Nile, though now you hear it differently. Its current, once merely a flow of water, now sounds like rhythm, a steady, sacred pulse that never stops. Every wave, every breeze, every bird's cry carries the same pattern you heard in the forest. And in that realization you understand that the earth itself is drumming not for us, but with us. The gods of the sky, the waters of the river, the sands of the desert, all keep time in one vast invisible rhythm. It is the music that connects all living things, the unending conversation between heaven and earth. You pause at the riverbank, your hand pressed against your chest. You can feel your own heartbeat matching the rhythm around you, slow, steady, eternal. The drum, you realize, was never meant to call the gods from afar. It was meant to remind us that they were never far away at all. They have always been here, listening, beating quietly beneath the surface of the world, beneath the skin of our own hearts. Chapter 8. The Drums of Warriors and the Drums of Prayer. The rhythm of the earth still hums softly within you. The drums that called the sky and stirred the rivers have faded into a quiet pulse somewhere deep inside your chest. Yet as you walk along the banks of the Nile once more, you begin to sense that the same beat can take on many forms. The rhythm that summons rain can also summon courage. The sound that heals can also prepare hearts for battle. For in the language of drums, there is no contradiction, only transformation. It is not the drum that changes, but the purpose within the hands that strike it. You close your eyes and imagine another time, another land. The air thickens with dust. The horizon glows with the light of fire, and hundreds of feet move in unison across the ground. Soldiers advance under the heavy weight of armor, their faces hardened by duty. And at the heart of their march, the drums thunder. The sound is relentless, primal, alive. It shakes the air sharp as a heartbeat turned into command. Every strike tells them who they are, brothers defenders, instruments of will. The rhythm gives them strength, courage, order. It drowns out fear. It replaces hesitation with purpose. The beat becomes their language, a wordless vow that no man will fall alone. Each crash of hide and wood binds them tighter than blood. The sound rises echoing across the battlefield, and even the earth seems to tremble beneath it. From a distance, it might seem like chaos, yet within it lies astonishing precision. The drum does not simply lead it, dictates the movement of time itself. Soldiers advance, retreat, breathe, strike, all in rhythm. The drum carries the pulse of the army like a single heart. Without it, the formation would crumble. With it, they move like waves unstoppable. And yet when the battle ends and the weapons fall silent, the same drum is lifted again, not to command, but to console. The rhythm softens. The thunder turns to whisper. In its slower beat, the sound becomes mourning, then gratitude, then peace. It is as though the drum knows the truth. Humans often forget that war and prayer share the same roots in the soul. Both rise from longing. Both seek meaning in chaos. Both speak to forces larger than ourselves. You think of this as you walk along the Nile, the water glimmering like liquid bronze beneath the sun. A fisherman beats softly on the side of his wooden boat, tapping out a rhythm to keep time while casting his net. Nearby, a woman hums as she grinds grain, her song blending with the rhythm of her labor. The sound of daily life, though humble, carries the same sacred pulse you heard in the drums of battle and rain. The difference is not in the sound, it is in the intention. The hand that strikes in anger creates war. The hand that strikes in reverence creates prayer. Your thoughts drift back to the ancient tribes whose stories you carry in your mind. In Africa, warriors once painted their shields with symbols of the sky and the earth, believing that the drum's rhythm could awaken the spirit of protection within them. Before battle, they did not shout, they drummed. The sound rose like a storm before the rain, shaking the ground, calling upon ancestors and gods alike. But after victory, those same warriors would return to their villages and drum again, this time not for blood, but for healing. They played to remind the spirits that the fighting was done, that life could breathe again. You picture a different scene now, high in the mountains of Asia. Monks sit in a circle, their robes the color of autumn leaves. In the center burns a small lamp. The air is still. Then one of them strikes a single drum, a deep resonant sound that lingers like a bell. It is not loud, not commanding, but it fills the room with presence. The rhythm begins to flow slowly, evenly, matching the breath of the monks as they chant. The drum becomes their metronome for contemplation. Every beat reminds them to return to the moment, to the self, to stillness. It is discipline turned into devotion. In both places, the battlefield and the monastery, the drum serves the same purpose: to align the human with the divine. It calls the mind out of confusion, the body out of hesitation. It transforms fear into focus, pain into purpose. And perhaps that is why it has endured through millennia. Long before we could write prayers or carve scriptures, we could feel rhythm. It was the first teacher of unity. The wind picks up, carrying grains of sand that sparkle in the sunlight. You stand on the edge of the desert again, listening to the soft hiss of wind across the dunes. For a moment you imagine it as another kind of drumming, the earth's endless percussion. It has no beginning and no end. Perhaps the ancients learned rhythm by listening to this, the shifting of sand, the crash of waves, the beat of storms across stone. As the day wanes, the color of the world turns from gold to amber, then to deep violet. The soundscape of Egypt changes too. The shouts of laborers fade, the animals grow quiet. From a distant temple, you hear a faint sound, a slow, steady drum echoing through the dusk. It is the rhythm of evening prayer, marking the end of another day. You pause and listen, letting it sink into you. Each beat seems to rise like a pulse through the air, gentle but commanding. You can feel it in your bones. It reminds you that life itself is built on repetition. Heartbeats, breaths, steps, seasons. Everything that endures moves in rhythm. The monks, the warriors, the mothers by the river, all are part of the same eternal pattern, the same dance between chaos and peace. You close your eyes and breathe with the drum. Its sound grows softer, merging with the hum of insects and the rustle of wind. The night sky unfolds above you, vast and luminous. In the distance, the Nile reflects the first stars, shimmering like molten silver. And as the drum fades, you realize that silence is not its opposite. It is its completion. The absence of sound allows the heart to remember the rhythm that came before it. You carry that rhythm now, not as a memory, but as a pulse moving quietly within you. It is the reminder that every struggle, every prayer, every heartbeat belongs to the same great song, the song that began when humanity first heard the earth breathe and decided to answer. Chapter 9. When Sound Became Silence. The echo of the evening drum still lingers within you, long after its last note has faded into the night. You can almost feel the rhythm pulsing softly through the ground beneath your feet, travelling through the river, through the air, through your own heartbeat. It reminds you that music never truly ends, it only changes form. And as you walk along the quiet banks of the Nile under a sky scattered with stars, you begin to realize that every sound that has ever been made eventually leads here to silence. Not an empty silence, but a living one, filled with memory and peace. At dawn, the first light appears like a soft breath over the horizon. The world is still. No drums now, no voices, only the faint rustle of reeds swaying in the morning breeze. You close your eyes, and in that hush, you can hear something deeper, the silence behind all sound, the stillness that gives music its shape. You remember what the monks understood without silence. Rhythm has no meaning. Silence is the canvas upon which all creation paints its beauty. You walk through the village as it slowly awakens. A child stirs from sleep, a donkey brays in the distance, a woman begins to grind grain with the same patient rhythm as always. The world begins its daily song once again, but beneath it all lies a layer of quiet, a steady calm that holds everything together. You start to understand that silence is not the absence of life, it is its foundation. It is what allows every sound, every heartbeat, every word to exist in harmony. As the sun rises higher, you find a place of shade beneath a tamarisk tree. The branches sway gently, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. From here you can see both the river and the desert, the flowing and the still, the living and the eternal. The contrast feels familiar, like two halves of the same soul. The river is sound, movement, change, expression. The desert is silence, stillness, permanence, reflection. Both are necessary. Without one, the other loses meaning. You think of the drums again, their thunderous call before battle, their gentle rhythm of prayer, their heartbeat that once moved through entire cities. Where have they gone now? Perhaps they rest like everything else, waiting for the moment they will be needed again. You realize that sound, like all things, must bow to the rhythm of the universe. There is a time to speak and a time to listen, a time to move and a time to be still. A soft breeze moves across the Nile. You watch the ripples spread outward, forming delicate rings that widen until they disappear. The sound of water against stone is faint but constant. It feels like the breath of the earth itself, slow, patient, eternal. You wonder if silence is the language of the divine. In sound we express, in silence we understand. You lie back on the warm earth and gaze up at the sky. It is a pale, endless blue, unmarred by cloud or shadow. You let your breathing slow, falling into the same rhythm as the wind. The longer you stay still, the more alive the silence becomes. You begin to hear layers within it, the hum of insects hidden in the grass, the whisper of your pulse in your ears, the distant laughter of a child carried faintly on the wind. The world is never truly silent. It only asks you to listen more deeply. As the day unfolds, the heat grows heavy, pressing down like an invisible hand. The air shimmers, and the land seems to dissolve into light. You think of the people working in the fields, the priests praying in their temples, the merchants calling out in the market. Their voices rise and fall like the tide, each one adding a note to the great song of existence. Yet even amid the noise, there is order, a hidden rhythm guiding everything toward balance. By midday, the sun sits high and the world slows to a breathless pause. The workers rest, the animals sleep, and even the wind seems to hold itself still. It is in this suspended moment that you feel the full weight of silence, not as emptiness, but as presence. It feels like standing inside the heart of the world, where everything is connected by stillness. You begin to realize that silence is not something we enter, it is something we return to. Every word we speak rises from it and falls back into it like waves dissolving into the sea. Every song begins in silence and ends in silence, just as every life begins in a quiet heartbeat and ends in one final stillness. The more you think about it, the more sacred it becomes. As evening approaches, the world stirs once more. The farmers return to their homes, their sandals leaving soft prints in the dust. The children run along the riverbank, chasing the fading light. And somewhere far in the distance, a single drum sounds a slow, steady rhythm that feels like the closing breath of the day. It is not loud, not meant to command, only to remind. The sound fades quickly, blending into the growing quiet of twilight. You stay by the river until the stars appear again. The water mirrors the sky, each ripple holding a fragment of light. You think of all the sounds that have filled this world, the laughter, the cries, the songs, the prayers, and how each one in time returns to silence. It is as if the universe itself breathes through this endless cycle sound, expanding outward, silence drawing it back in. You close your eyes and listen not for rhythm now, but for the space between rhythms. That space is where peace lives. It is where the soul goes when words no longer serve, where the heart listens instead of speaking. You feel it now, deep and still, the same silence that surrounded the pyramids, that moved through the desert winds, that holds the stars in their place. It is the silence that existed before the first drum was struck, before the first human voice rose to call upon the heavens. And as the night settles over Egypt, you understand silence is not the end of the song. It is the truth that allows the song to exist. Every beat, every note, every breath is born from it and returns to it like a traveler coming home. You breathe in the cool air, let it fill your chest, and whisper into the darkness, not with words, but with stillness. The river answers with its quiet murmur, and in that moment the world feels whole. Chapter 10. The Rhythm of Dreaming Hearts. The silence of the previous night still lingers like a gentle veil over your thoughts. It is not emptiness, but fullness, a calm that breathes softly beneath the surface of the world. The drums have faded into memory, their echoes absorbed by the river, their rhythm transformed into the slow beating of your own heart. Yet as dawn returns and the Nile glows once again with morning light, you sense that silence itself has begun to hum, not with sound, but with presence. Within it lies a new rhythm, one born not from hands or instruments, but from the human spirit learning to dream. The sky above the Nile is pale gold, and the water mirrors it like a sheet of quiet fire. The first fishermen push their small boats from shore, their oars dipping into the river with soft, deliberate strokes. Each motion seems guided by an invisible beat. You realize now that rhythm does not disappear when the drums are silent. It lives in every movement, the rising of the sun, the flight of a bird, the slow unfolding of a flower. Life itself is the drum, and every soul adds its heartbeat to the eternal song. You watch as the villagers begin their day. A woman hums a low melody while sweeping her doorstep. A child claps his hands in time with the calls of passing herons. Even the wind seems to join in carrying fragments of laughter and murmured prayer. There is music everywhere, woven so seamlessly into life that few notice it anymore. Yet once you do, you cannot unhear it. Every step, every breath becomes part of a vast composition, a symphony that has no beginning and no end. You sit by the river's edge, your fingers tracing shapes in the damp soil. The mud feels cool, alive, and for a moment you imagine the earth beneath you breathing. It inhales through roots and exhales through wind. It listens. It responds. You think back to the first drums, to the voices that once called the sky and the water, and realize they were never separate from this moment. Humanity's earliest music was never about sound alone. It was about connection. Every rhythm ever played was an act of remembering that we belong to something larger than ourselves. As the day grows brighter, A group of travellers passes by the riverbank. They carry small instruments, flutes made of bone strings of gut and wood, and drums worn smooth from use. Their leader, an old man with eyes like weathered stone, greets you with a nod before sitting beneath a nearby acacia tree. The others gather around him, and soon a soft melody begins to rise. It is not loud, not meant to entertain. It is the kind of music played for no one and everyone, the kind that fills the air without asking permission. The flutes sing like birds at dawn, weaving long trembling notes that drift upward into the sky. The strings answer their voices, warm and human. Then faintly the drums join steady heartbeats soft, as if afraid to disturb the peace. The sound is simple, yet something in it awakens you. It feels ancient and new at once, a reminder that the essence of music has always been love, the love between people, between body and earth, between creation and creator. The old man closes his eyes as he plays, his face calm, his hands sure. Each note seems to come from a place beyond memory, carried by faith rather than skill. Around him, the travellers sway with the rhythm, and you find yourself doing the same. There is no separation between performer and listener here. The music belongs to everyone, to the soil beneath their feet, the sky above their heads, and the hearts that beat between. When the song fades, no one claps. There are no words of praise or farewell. The silence that follows feels sacred, as if the world itself is holding its breath to honor what was just heard. Then the old man opens his eyes and smiles. The drum, he says softly, is only a reminder of what already lives inside you. He places a hand over his chest. It is here the first instrument, the one that never breaks. You feel the truth of his words. The heart has been beating since before birth, long before thought or language. It was the first rhythm you ever knew, and perhaps the only one you will carry until your last breath. Everything else, drums, chants, hymns, is merely an echo of that single faithful pulse. The realization moves through you like light. Every sound that has ever stirred the soul is born from this quiet miracle within the chest. As afternoon fades into evening, the travellers depart, their music lingering like perfume in the air. You watch them disappear into the distance, their figures slowly blending with the horizon. The sun sinks low, its reflection stretching across the Nile like a road of liquid gold. The world seems to sigh in gratitude. The rhythm you now feel is gentle and complete, as if all things river, sky, heart, and silence have found their harmony. You walk along the water's edge until twilight deepens. The first stars appear shimmering faintly on the surface of the river. somewhere nearby, a mother sings her child to sleep. Her voice is low, tender, rhythmic. The lullaby drifts through the evening like a prayer, and you realize it is not just the child who is being comforted, it is the entire world. The song carries the same rhythm that once echoed through temples and forests across deserts and mountains. It is the rhythm of love that spans generations, the heartbeat that unites all living things. The night grows quiet, and you lie back on the sand, gazing at the endless sky. You can still feel the pulse of your heart in your chest, slow and steady. It seems to align with the stars, as if the universe itself beats in time with you. The thought fills you with peace. You finally understand that the journey through sound and silence, through drum and prayer, has led you here to this simple awareness that to be alive is to be music. The world hums softly around you, the rivers murmur, the whisper of reeds, the distant call of an owl. They blend together until you can no longer tell where one sound ends and another begins. It feels as though you are floating inside a great eternal melody. You close your eyes and let it carry you weightless towards sleep. And as you drift between waking and dreaming, you hear it again. Not the drum of war, not the chant of the temple, but the quiet, perfect rhythm of life itself. It beats not in your ears, but in your soul, a reminder that the song of creation never truly ends. It only changes singers, moving from heart to heart, generation to generation, until the whole world breathes in harmony once more. Chapter 11. The Island. Sleeping beneath the mist. The rhythm of dreaming hearts fades softly into stillness, leaving behind an echo of calm that stretches beyond time and place. The river, the drums, the villages, they dissolve like ripples at the edge of sleep, until all that remains is silence and light. From that silence, a new world begins to form, a world far from the sands of Egypt, far from the music of the Nile. You feel it before you see it, the steady heartbeat of the earth beneath your feet, slow and vast, breathing beneath layers of fog. When the mist parts, an island appears rising like a thought from the sea. The air here feels different, cool, damp and heavy, with the scent of salt and stone. The sky hangs low, its colour neither grey nor blue, but something between a tone of waiting. Waves lap gently at the shore, their rhythm patient and ancient. You step onto the sand and hear nothing but the whisper of water, the creak of gulls, the sigh of wind moving through tall grass. The silence is not empty. It is alive. It is the silence before creation, the breath the world takes before speaking. This island, known later as Manhattan, rests quietly beneath the morning fog, untouched by noise, untouched by dream. There are no towers yet, no fires burning through the night, no footsteps on the cobblestones, only forest and marsh, river and rock. The trees stand like pillars of green, their roots sunk deep into the soil of time. You can almost feel the pulse of the earth flowing upward through them, a slow rhythm, steady and old. It is the same rhythm that once guided the Nile, the same that beat within the drums of distant tribes. Though the land has changed, the music remains. You walk inland and the fog thickens around you. Every sound feels hushed, softened. The cry of a heron echoes across the marsh, and even that seems sacred, a single note in the symphony of stillness. Beneath your feet the ground is soft with moss and pine needles. Each step releases a faint fragrance of earth and rain. You realize this is not just land, it is memory waiting to awaken. The island dreams of what it will become, though it does not yet know its destiny. You find a clearing near the water's edge, where the tide moves in gentle circles, shaping small pools that glimmer like mirrors. You kneel beside one and look down. The reflection is faint, blurred by ripples, but for a moment you imagine the future shimmering within it, a city of glass and stone towers piercing the clouds, streets alive with the rhythm of millions of hearts. It is not yet real yet, somehow already breathing within the island's soul. Every city is born this way, from silence, from dreaming. A soft rain begins to fall, threading through the mist like strands of silver. It gathers on the leaves, drips from branches, and settles into the ground with the sound of quiet applause. The earth drinks deeply. Somewhere beneath the surface, roots awaken, carrying this gift downward into the darkness. You sense that the land is preparing itself for what is to come, for the weight of buildings, for the hum of engines, for the countless lives that will walk upon it. But for now, it sleeps. You move deeper into the woods. The trees grow denser, their trunks thick with age. Ferns unfurl beneath your feet, and birds flicker like small pieces of light between the branches. The smell of wet bark and salt air fills your lungs. Every sense feels sharp and alive. This place, untouched and unhurried, holds the serenity of a prayer unspoken. You think of all the hands that will one day shape it, the sailors, the builders, the dreamers, and how even then the land beneath will still be listening, still keeping its ancient rhythm beneath the noise. The rain stops, and sunlight filters faintly through the thinning mist. A golden haze settles over the clearing. You can see the outlines of rivers that will one day be crossed by bridges, the rocky hills that will cradle towers of steel, the lowlands that will become streets lined with lives. Yet none of that has come to pass. The island for now remains in its first innocence, like a child in deep sleep, unaware of the world waiting to awaken it. You sit beneath a maple tree and listen to the distant call of the ocean. The sound of waves striking rock is constant, soft, rhythmic, a heartbeat that echoes the earth's own. You remember the drums of the past, their pulse guiding the faithful and the brave. Here there are no drums, yet you feel the same power in the rhythm of the tide. The ocean plays its eternal song, and the island listens. Perhaps this is how civilizations begin, not with conquest or design, but with listening. The mist begins to lift slowly, revealing more of the land. The horizon stretches wide, and in the faint light of the setting sun, the island glows like a promise. You sense its destiny in the air, the mingling of old and new, of stillness and movement, of silence and song. One day this place will be filled with sound, voices, footsteps, bells, engines, laughter. But beneath it all, this quiet heartbeat will remain buried deep in the soil, reminding the city of its beginning in silence. As twilight settles, you rise and walk back toward the shore. The tide has crept higher, and the waves now kiss your ankles with cool fingers. You look once more at the horizon where the sky meets the sea. There is no sign of what will come, no skyline, no bridges, no lights, only mist water and endless potential. You close your eyes and listen. The sound of the sea merges with the rhythm of your pulse, and for a fleeting moment, they are one. The night gathers around you, and the fog returns, softening every shape into dream. You breathe in the salt air and realize you are standing at the threshold of two worlds, the ancient and the modern, the still and the restless, the sleeping and the awakening. The island beneath your feet stirs faintly as if turning in its sleep. And somewhere deep below, in the heart of the earth, the first vibration begins, a rhythm too slow to hear, but strong enough to last forever. The world is preparing to wake. Chapter 12. When humanity learned to rise toward the sky, the island still breathes softly beneath the mist, its pulse steady and patient, like the heartbeat of something dreaming. You remember the hush that lay over it, the rhythm of the tide brushing against untouched shores, and how silence carried the weight of promise. That promise now begins to stir. The fog thins, light expands, and the earth, so long content to rest, feels a new longing awakening within it. Humanity has begun to dream upward. The centuries pass like exhaled breath. The once sleeping island stirs, then quickens, as if the world itself is opening its eyes. The first wooden ships arrive, their sails full of wind and wonder. They glide into the harbour, carrying with them not only people, but ideas, beliefs, ambitions, and the unspoken hunger to build something that touches the heavens. The trees that once grew wild are cut and shaped into homes, into beams, into the skeletons of a future not yet imagined. Smoke curls upward for the first time from human hands. The sky, once distant and untouched, begins to feel near. The island grows busier. Roads emerge where deer once walked, and the rhythm of footsteps replaces the hush of waves. Hammer strikes and saws sing the sounds of creation blending with the hum of the wind. Every noise seems to echo the same prayer, higher, stronger, longer lasting. The people look toward the clouds, not with fear, but with yearning. To them, the sky is not a ceiling, it is a destination. You walk among them unseen as years turn into decades. The wooden homes become brick, the paths become streets. Horse-drawn carts rattle through the growing city, their wheels clattering like percussion against cobblestones. The river, once wide and wild, now carries ferries, barges, dreams. At night, the lights of the harbour flicker like small constellations fallen to earth. And through it all, the rhythm continues, the same heartbeat you once felt in the desert sands of Egypt, in the forests where drums spoke to the sky. Humanity has changed its instruments, but not its song. By the dawn of a new century, the city hums like an organism alive with purpose. Steam rises from factories, trains thunder across bridges, and the skyline begins to break free of the horizon. Iron becomes the new stone, steel the new faith. The workers who build the great towers walk among girders that stretch like ribs of giants. They move with grace and courage, their hands blackened by labor, their eyes bright with hope. To them, height is no longer a dream, but a calling. Every beam lifted into the air feels like a note in an ascending hymn. You stand on a construction site one early morning. The air smells of metal and rain, and the city below is still half asleep. A man, lean and sunburned, wipes sweat from his brow and looks upward toward the frame of a rising building. "She'll scrape the clouds," he says softly, his voice half awe, half exhaustion. You follow his gaze and see the skeleton of the first skyscraper gleaming in the dawn light. It rises not as a challenge to the heavens, but as a conversation, a bridge between the earth that bore humanity and the sky that has always called to it. From that day forward, nothing remains the same. More towers grow like trees in a forest made of glass and steel. The city stretches higher, its skyline forming a new horizon against the clouds. Each building reflects the sun in 1,000 directions, scattering light like prayers whispered by 1,000,000 souls. From afar, the city gleams like a dream too beautiful to be real. But within its walls, life pulses with the same fragile rhythm as it always has. Heartbeats, footsteps, laughter, grief. Even in this forest of stone, humanity still moves to the rhythm of the earth. You wander through the streets as the years pass. Streetcars clatter, voices rise in a dozen languages. The air thrums with ambition. Every sound carries both hope and hunger. The people believe they are building toward eternity, and in a way they are. but you can also feel the quiet beneath it all, the deep, steady silence that still belongs to the land beneath their feet. Beneath the layers of concrete and noise, the island remembers. Its pulse has not stopped. It only beats slower now, waiting. One evening you climb to the top of a newly completed tower. The wind is sharp, the world below a maze of light and motion. The sun sets in a wash of gold and crimson, painting the city in colour so vivid it feels alive. From this height, you can see the curve of the earth, the shimmer of the river, the endless sky beyond. The city's heartbeat seems to merge with your own. Every train, every footstep, every breath rises into the air and becomes part of a single living rhythm. And yet in the midst of this triumph you feel something else, something tender, almost sad. The higher humanity climbs, the smaller it seems before the infinite. The towers, magnificent as they are, remain tiny against the endless sweep of the sky. It is as though the earth itself is whispering, "Do not forget where you began." You think of the ancient builders who raised pyramids in the desert, believing that height could bring them closer to eternity. You realize that their dream never ended. It simply moved here across the ocean, reborn in steel and light. Night descends and the city becomes a galaxy of its own. The lights shimmer in the windows like stars, and the streets below pulse with motion. You stand at the edge of the tower, looking out over the island that once slept beneath the mist. It no longer sleeps, it shines. Yet deep within its foundations, beneath the subways and cables and roaring engines, the earth still breathes slowly, patiently, like an old heart that knows every dream must return to silence someday. You close your eyes, feeling the wind move through your hair, the hum of the city beneath your feet. The sound is no longer just noise, it is life itself, chaotic and beautiful, 1,000 rhythms merging into one. Humanity has learned to rise not to escape the earth, but to touch the divine. The city is proof of that longing, a testament to the same fire that once made people sing to rivers and beat drums to the heavens. And as the night deepens, the stars above the skyline seem to lean closer, reflecting in the glass towers like ancient eyes watching the new world with quiet wonder. The earth below, the sky above, and everything between them, the builders, the dreamers, the quiet heartbeat of the island, all move together in a rhythm older than time, one that will continue as long as there are hearts brave enough to rise. Chapter 13. The Light of Dreams and Golden Illusions. The city's heartbeat still echoes in your chest, the steady rhythm of footsteps, the hum of machines, the whisper of wind weaving between towers of glass and iron. From the quiet soil that once slept beneath the mist, humanity has risen higher than it ever dreamed. You can still feel the pulse of those who built it, the labourers who looked up at the sky and dared to believe that heaven could be reached with human hands. Yet now, standing amid the glow of this modern forest, another light begins to rise, one not from the sun or the stars, but from the hearts of men, the light of desire, of beauty, of the age of shining illusions. The dawn breaks across Manhattan like molten gold. The new towers catch fire in the early light, their mirrored faces gleaming with the color of morning. It is the era of Art Deco, a time when architecture learned not only to climb, but to dance. Every building seems to possess its own rhythm, a harmony of geometry and grace. Lines ascend in curves and angles guided by both science and poetry. Brass glints where once there was stone. Steel sings in patterns that echo the rise of music and movement. The city has become a living symphony of light. You walk down Fifth Avenue and the world feels transformed. The air hums with electricity, with motion, with purpose. Cars glide like polished shells through the streets, and people hurry with an energy that feels both exhilarating and fragile. Their clothing, their laughter, their dreams all shimmer like reflections in a mirror. Beauty itself has become a pursuit, a promise whispered through every storefront window and every radio broadcast. The modern world has fallen in love with its own reflection. The Chrysler Building rises above the skyline, its spire glinting like a crown of silver flames. From below you watch as the sunlight climbs its metallic skin, illuminating the patterns that wrap around it like jewelry. It is more than architecture, it is aspiration cast in steel. You imagine the workers who once balanced on its narrow beams, hundreds of feet above the ground, their hands steady despite the wind. They were building more than a skyscraper. They were building faith in progress, in possibility, in the shimmering belief that there was no limit to what humankind could create. Yet beneath this brilliance, a quiet truth begins to hum, almost inaudible, beneath the engines and the music. The higher the buildings reach, the deeper the shadows they cast. The city glows by night, but its alleys remain dark. Behind every glittering window lies a heartbeat that trembles with doubt, a soul wondering whether beauty alone can fill the silence. For all its golden light, the city has begun to forget the rhythm of the earth beneath it. Progress hums like a lullaby, but it is easy to mistake motion for meaning. You find yourself inside one of the grand lobbies that define the new age, its ceiling painted with constellations, its walls of marble and bronze reflecting the light of chandeliers. People move through the space like actors on a stage, each dressed in elegance, their conversations a melody of ambition. A woman laughs softly, her voice echoing off the walls. A man adjusts his tie in a mirrored column, gazing at his own reflection as though seeking reassurance that he exists. Everywhere mirrors, everywhere light. And yet, when the laughter fades, when the doors close, the silence that follows feels almost holy. It is the silence of beauty asking for meaning. Outside, the streets pulse with jazz. Horns and drums spill out of smoke-filled bars, mingling with the murmur of the crowds. The rhythm of the city has changed again. It no longer beats in the solemn cadence of builders or priests, but in the improvisation of dreamers. Jazz is the language of freedom, of longing, of the restless spirit of this new world. You pause by an open doorway and listen. A trumpet cries like a prayer, and the audience answers with laughter and applause. It feels alive, electric, and yet somewhere within the notes there is a trace of sorrow, a small reminder that even joy carries the memory of loss. Night falls, and the skyline ignites. The Empire State Building rises into the darkness, its beacon shining like a star newly born. The city below sparkles with millions of lights, each window a story, each reflection a soul. It is breathtaking, almost divine. But as you gaze across this ocean of brilliance, you can't help but wonder when light becomes constant. Does the heart still know how to rest in darkness? You walk along the East River, where the water mirrors the city's fire. Ripples distort the reflection, breaking the perfect symmetry into waves of gold and silver. The river does not judge, it simply holds the image and lets it go. You think of how the Nile once held the faces of those who prayed by its banks, and realize that all rivers are the same. They carry our hopes and our illusions, our triumphs and our tears. The reflection shimmers, then vanishes, reminding you that nothing golden stays for long. As midnight approaches, the streets quiet. The last echoes of laughter fade into the hum of the distant trains. The city exhales, weary from its own brilliance. You stand beneath the shadow of the Chrysler spire, its crown still shining, untiring. Above it, the moon watches in silence. In that moment, you sense that the city and the sky are mirrors of one another, one built by human hands, the other by eternity. Both are beautiful, both infinite, both haunted by the desire to be seen. You close your eyes and listen. Beneath the rhythm of engines, beneath the footsteps and the music, you can still hear it. The ancient pulse, the heartbeat of the earth, faint but steady. It is buried deep below the streets, beneath the steel and glass, beneath all the glittering dreams. It is waiting to be remembered. And though the city does not know it yet, one day it will pause to listen again to the silence behind its own song, to the truth hidden beneath its golden light. For now the towers stand luminous against the night, each one reflecting the fire of human hope. They seem eternal, but you know better. Everything that shines must one day dim. Every age of beauty must give way to reflection. And so you walk onward through the sleeping streets, the sound of your steps blending with the low hum of the city's dreams. Above you the skyline gleams like a crown made of stars, and beneath your feet the island still remembers the rhythm of the mist, the breath of the sea, and the whisper of eternity. Chapter 14. When the sky fell and we looked within. The light of Art Deco still glimmers in memory, the silver spires, the golden laughter, the rhythm of a city that believed its glow would never fade. But beauty, like dawn, always carries the shadow of dusk. The towers that once seemed eternal now tremble beneath an invisible weight, and the heartbeat of the city grows slower, quieter. For even in the midst of light, the soul begins to yearn for something deeper. The same hands that built upward must one day return to the earth to listen again. The morning that changed everything began like any other. The sun rose over Manhattan, pale and unassuming, painting the river in strokes of silver. Commuters hurried through the streets, newspapers tucked under their arms, coffee steaming in paper cups. The towers glowed as they always had, proud and indifferent, reaching into a cloudless sky. No one knew that within hours the city would fall into a silence so complete it would echo across the world. You remember the sound before the silence, the roar of engines, the sudden scream of metal, the gasp of disbelief that broke across the island like a storm. Time fractured. The skyline, once a hymn of triumph, shuddered, as if struck by the weight of all its forgotten prayers. Smoke rose where light had always lived, dark and endless, the air filled with dust and voices shouting, crying, praying. And then, as if the world itself exhaled, everything went still. The sky above Manhattan turned grey. Ash drifted through the air like snow. The towers that had once defied gravity now lay in ruins, their steel bones twisted, their glass shattered into a million mirrors, reflecting the same grief. You walk through the streets dazed, your feet heavy with dust. The city, so full of noise and music, now speaks only in whispers. Every sound feels sacred, the crack of footsteps on debris, the rustle of a flag, the faint sob of a stranger who has no words left. In that silence, the heartbeat returns, but it is not the rhythm of progress or ambition. It is the rhythm of mourning. The same pulse that once built temples and pyramids now beats softly in the chest of those who kneel, who search, who hold each other beneath the grey sky. For the first time in generations, the city prays. Not to be powerful, not to be seen, but simply to be held. You look up through the smoke and see the absence where the towers once stood. The space feels enormous, infinite, like a wound in the sky. Yet even in that emptiness, light begins to return. Not the electric glow of the city, but something quieter, the light of compassion, of unity, of the simple act of one human helping another. Strangers lift beams together. Firefighters carry bodies with trembling hands. Mothers press their palms to the faces of their children and whisper, "We are still here." The rhythm of the world begins again, not in grandeur, but in tenderness. Days turn into weeks, and the city slowly begins to breathe again. Candles fill the windows where neon once ruled. The streets, once roaring with engines, now murmur with footsteps and hymns. People stop and speak to one another, their eyes soft, their words fragile but sincere. They say, "I'm sorry, I love you, I remember." The sound of these words feels like a kind of music, the oldest kind, born not from joy, but from mercy. As time moves forward, the dust settles, but something in the air has changed. The skyline will be rebuilt, the lights will return, but deep beneath the steel and the glass, the island carries a new rhythm, a slower, deeper pulse. It is the same rhythm that once lived in the desert sands and the temple drums, the rhythm of loss transforming into understanding. The city that once reached upward now looks inward, rediscovering the sacred ground beneath its feet. You walk to the river one evening months later. The air is cool and the reflection of the skyline shimmers on the water. In the place where the towers once stood, beams of light rise into the night, twin columns of silver reaching toward the heavens. They are not made of stone or steel, but of memory of prayer. They seem weightless, almost fragile, yet they pierce the sky with quiet strength. People gather around you, their faces lit by the glow. No one speaks. The only sound is the hum of the wind and the soft ripple of the river. In that moment, you understand light does not die. It simply changes form. You close your eyes, and for a brief instant, you hear the echo of all the rhythms that have ever shaped humanity. The drum beats of Egypt, the chants of priests, the songs of workers, the heartbeat of the island, the roar of engines, the whisper of grief. All of it, every note and silence converges here in this moment of stillness. The city breathes again. The lights fade slowly, and the crowd begins to disperse, each person walking home beneath the stars. You remain by the river, listening to the pulse of the water against the shore. Somewhere deep within the earth, beneath layers of metal and memory, the same ancient rhythm continues, steady, patient, eternal. It is the sound of resilience of souls that refuse to forget. As you lift your gaze once more to the empty sky, you realize that every civilization, every heart must face its moment of falling. Yet, in that falling, lies the chance to rise again, not higher, but truer. The city has learned that its greatest towers were never made of steel, but of courage. Its brightest lights were never in its skyline, but in the quiet hearts that refuse to go dark. You take a breath, and the air tastes of salt and hope. The night is vast, the stars are clear, and the silence feels alive again. The rhythm has changed, but it has not stopped. It never will. Chapter 15. The Towers of the Soul. The memory of that grey morning still lingers, the silence after the fall, the dust that dimmed the sun, the fragile light that rose again from grief. Yet even as the city wept, the earth beneath it kept breathing slow and steady, like a great heart refusing to stop. Years have passed, and the skyline has begun to shimmer once more. But something deep within the island has changed. The rhythm that once pulsed with ambition now beats with remembrance. The towers that will rise again will not only touch the sky, they will touch the soul. The first signs of rebirth are quiet. Cranes stretch upward like prayerful hands, and the sound of steel meeting steel returns to the air. But this time it feels different. The rhythm of construction is no longer just the music of progress, it is an act of healing. Each beam lifted into the air is not merely a structure being rebuilt, but a memory being honored. Workers move with reverence, their hands guided by purpose rather than pride. The city is no longer racing to climb higher. It is learning how to stand again. From the riverbank you watch as the new tower begins to take form. Its foundation glows at dawn, kissed by light that feels both ancient and new. The reflection in the water is clear and still, as though the river itself understands the holiness of what it witnesses. Every day the structure grows taller, not in arrogance, but in gratitude. It is a gesture toward heaven, built from the broken pieces of earth. As months pass, the skyline transforms. The air hums again, but this time with a gentler song. The streets are filled, not with the fever of ambition, but with the quiet determination of those who remember loss and yet choose hope. People pause at construction sites not to marvel at height, but to pay silent respect. They look upward, but their thoughts remain grounded, anchored by humility. It feels as though the entire island is breathing together, a collective heartbeat echoing the lesson of rebirth. You walk through the streets one morning and the city feels alive in a new way. Flowers bloom from the cracks in the sidewalk. The sound of laughter returns to corners that once knew only sirens. A child holds her mother's hand and points toward the cranes, her eyes wide with wonder. "They're touching the sky again," she says softly, and her words feel like a hymn. When the day comes that the new tower finally reaches its peak, the city gathers to watch. The sun rises slowly behind it, setting the glass ablaze with color. It stands where the ruins once lay, but it is not a replacement. It is a resurrection. Its walls are mirrors catching the light and sending it outward, as if reminding the world that every darkness can be transformed into radiance. The reflection of clouds drifts across its surface, and in those shifting shapes you can almost see the faces of those who came before, the dreamers, the builders, the lost and the found. Inside the tower, the air is hushed. At its base lies a memorial where water flows endlessly into a deep square void. The sound of the cascade fills the space, both sorrowful and soothing. You stand there among others, strangers, yet not strangers, and watch the water fall. It feels like time itself, flowing, forgiving. Each droplet seems to whisper a name, a memory, a story. You reach out your hand, and the mist touches your skin like a blessing. For the first time, the silence feels complete, not empty, but whole. Later that evening, you ascend to the tower's highest floor. The elevator rises in near silence, carrying you upward through light. When the doors open, you step into air so clear it feels sacred. The city stretches beneath you like an ocean of glass and stone glowing in the soft hues of twilight. The rivers shimmer like veins of silver. The bridges curve like threads of faith connecting each shore. From this height, everything seems small, yet perfectly placed, as though the city itself were one great heart, still beating, still alive. You press your hand against the cool glass and feel your own reflection merge with the skyline. In that moment, you understand that the tower is more than a building, it is a mirror of the human soul. It stands because we learned to rise not from power, but from compassion. It shines because we dared to forgive. It endures because the human spirit, like light itself, can be bent but never broken. As night deepens, the city becomes a constellation of living stars. The lights flicker in every window, each one a story, a heartbeat, a dream. From above, it looks as though the sky has descended to earth, as if heaven itself has chosen to dwell here. And perhaps in a way it has. For the divine does not only reside in the heavens, it resides wherever love rebuilds what loss has taken. You close your eyes and listen. Beneath the hum of the city, beneath the rustle of wind against glass, you can hear it again, the same rhythm that once echoed through the desert sands and the sacred drums of ancient times. It is the rhythm of life continuing, of hearts synchronizing in grief and grace. It is faint but constant, a reminder that creation is never finished, it only changes form. When you open your eyes, the moon has risen over the skyline, its silver light gliding across the river. The tower gleams beneath it, serene and still, as if it too were listening. You realize that the city has completed its journey from silence to sound, from sound to light, from light to love. The towers no longer reach upward to conquer the sky, they rise to reflect it. They have become altars built not for ambition, but for remembrance and renewal. You step back and take in the view one last time, the city alive, the river whispering, the stars watching. Everything feels connected. The ancient heartbeat of the earth, the pulse of the city, the rhythm of your own breathing. It is all one song, endless and tender. You whisper a silent thank you to the past that shaped you, to the pain that taught you, to the light that never left. And as you leave the tower, walking once more along the quiet streets of Manhattan, the wind brushes your face like a familiar hand. It carries with it the same ancient rhythm, steady and eternal, reminding you that every rise begins with a fall. Every Every light is born from darkness, and every tower, no matter how tall, is but a reflection of the soul that dreamed it into being. In the end, all the rivers, deserts, drums, and towers were speaking of the same thing, the quiet, unbreakable rhythm of being alive. From the first heartbeat beneath the sands of Egypt to the shining skyline reborn above the Hudson, humanity has always been listening for that pulse, sometimes in sound, sometimes in silence. We have built, fallen, dreamed, and risen again, not to conquer the world, but to remember our place within it. And though centuries may pass, the rhythm remains the slow, patient heartbeat of creation, whispering through water, stone, and soul alike. You are part of something eternal.